Townsend. We gather today to share a particular kind of community, a community of faith, one in which each of us is free to quest for our own ways of being, spiritual and religious. We gather today to think about how we have done this until now and how we might do this from now. We are none of us the same as we were 20 years ago, or even last week. We are none of us the same as we will be in the next few weeks or years. As the paths of our lives cover new terrain, may we find helpful new ideas, new concepts, understandings of spirit, the highest good in life, and new ways to interpret those we have loved long and hard. And may we be open to the voice of wisdom wherever and however we find it. Blessed be. Light our chalice flame, symbol of our open, creedless faith. Spirit of life, God of love. The image of the freedom train speaks to me today. I've waited so long for a train to arrive and carry me to the promised land of justice and peace. Now, on the platform of indifference and self-doubt, I see that the train is here and it's waiting for me to step on board. Yet somehow a shadow who I can be is holding me back, saying, who are you to ride with those who risked so much for freedom? Who are you to proclaim the sacred message of the inherent worth and dignity of every person? The conductor's calling me on board. I've got to decide what to do. Will I step up and over my own fears and prejudices? Will I dare to ride with the outcast immigrant, the unwashed homeless, the challenged? Will I walk with a hated Jew or hated Muslim or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist? Will I speak with compassion and love, especially to those who disagree with me, who abuse me, who threaten me? Will I risk my comfort to comfort others? Spirit of great longing, awaken in me the courage to get on. On the train of courage, or the train of freedom, or the train of responsibility. The theme I'm actually using today is responsibility. And I'm hoping we'll have a bit of a chat about what that might feel like, or sound like, or taste like, however you experience it today. Now, I'm Mark Hutchinson. I've been threatening to Louise to come up to the northeast for at least 6 years. So finally here I am. So it's really nice to be here. I'm community minister at Evesham Unitarian Community, south of Birmingham, very part-time, and I've been working the last 3 years on the Unitarian Transformers project, which I think we'll talk a little bit about after the service. But I want to get one or two of the concepts into today's service too. So Unitarian Transformers grew out of a group in Malvern called Malvern Transformers, which is associated with my chapel. And up there, not well publicised, but we have quite a large children's group that meets on a Friday night and does Sunday school on a Friday night, an ethical programme for youngsters, and they use the name Transformers. And they work with the starfish story, which I'm sure you know. So the starfish story is the little girl walking on the beach, and there's thousands of starfish there. She's quietly picking one up, throwing it back in the sea. And there's a horrible pair of adults, don't know whether you know any of that kind of person, and sneeringly laughs at the child who looks up at them and says, and the adult says, what are you doing that for? There's thousands of them. It's completely pointless. You're not going to make any difference. The child, I think quite petulantly, picks up another starfish, throws it in the ocean and goes, I made a difference for that starfish, didn't I? And so they use that story as the foundation story of the group, and we use that with Transformers. And so here's a little fella with a starfish on. And at the risk of causing chaos, I've got the new chalice on the back.
We're not precious about the chalice.
Well, you know, I always have to say that because some people are all a bit precious about the chalice. And you have the chalice of your choice. That's the Unitarian thing. But I've now added also a butterfly to the starfish, because the idea of the starfish story is we want to pick up the starfish and look after that starfish, but we also have the little girl that we need to look after, who's trying to pick up the starfish back into the ocean. And the butterfly is based around the idea of the butterfly effect. So the mythological butterfly effect, that the butterfly flaps its wings in Australia and there is then a tornado on the east coast of America, which is not quite true, but the idea that we actually don't know where the vibration goes, I do like as a metaphor. And so Transformers as it is now is looking to support starfish and the little girl, but always seeking butterflies. So where we're able to make a bigger effect. Whether we succeed is an entirely different matter. So to prepare us into a period of reflection, chosen today to get you lot to join in. It makes it much easier if I don't have to talk, you know. So I have got a choice of 20 short quotes, mainly from Rumi, but also from other Sufi writers. So what I'd like to do is ask one or two of you to give me a number, and I'll read out this short piece, and we'll have a period of silence, and then I'll ask for another number, and we'll do that 3 or 4 times.
Would you like the people who are joining us online to choose some numbers?
That would be ideal, yes. So how many have we got online?
We have 3 people online today.
Hello, 3 people online. So yes, in fact, we'll start with them. So if they could send in a chat between numbers between 1 and 20, if I could have a couple of numbers, that would be great. I'll take one number from here. 7, please. I have a 7. Don't pick 7 online, please. We've already had it.
They have picked 2 numbers, and it's 16 and 17.
Excellent. Okay. Well,
and 14. That's it.
17, 14, 16, 17. Okay, we'll try and do that. Okay, so let's prepare ourselves for the reflection on these words, and then I will go into a more extended period of reflection afterwards. And so, number 7, be still, be quiet, find acquaintance with silence. Go inside and delve into your heart. Take a day off from the clamour. What is forgiveness? And the Sufi replied, it's the fragrance that flowers give when they are crushed. 16. If you find me not within you, you will never find me. For I have been with you from the beginning of me. Final one. Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. From this place of silence now, we gather to feed our hearts. Weekly, each Sunday now in this new place. Sustenance we feel is vital. It is our hope the we, not the I, that in sharing this sustenance, there feels like slightly louder voices, maybe slightly stronger rain pouring, and the chance of the offerings from the flowers. Yes, the we is the we of our connection here on a Sunday, but it's also the we here in the centre of this city and all those that are around. Quite a few of them this morning. It's the Great North Road. But let's open our hearts to, yes, beyond the we of this city, out into the world. Let's remember with a little silence all those who live in periods of violence, the people this week who received a report to that disaster some years ago. It may not be bringing some of them any closer to understanding how that tragedy happened. I attend a Unitarian gathering to feed my heart and my spirit, but I also attend to be with you, for us to be together, to acknowledge the pain of the world and to express our hopes that we can touch the world in some way at some time.
So, responsibility. How's life going? How are the responsibilities?
It's going.
It's going. Anyway, so I've got a definition of responsibility here. You'll be glad to know. A person's duty to complete a task or role or to own the outcomes of their actions. Oh. Anyway, we'll see. A good slide goes on forever, this definition, so we're not going to do that. Just wondered, anybody other got responsibility? What does that bring up for everybody? And please do text in the chat online if something to do with responsibility. It's got an example here which says mowing the lawn is a responsibility.
Oh.
Now that will amuse my friend who's online, because he knows what an appalling gardener I am. And there's quite a long story around all of that, which I'm not going to define today. So mowing the lawn may be a responsibility, one that I have failed throughout my whole life. So anyway, responsibility. How does responsibility speak to anybody today?
Being the first child.
Ooh, the first child. That's a responsibility, yes. Anybody else?
Being trusted with things.
Being trusted with things, yes.
I can give an example of that. My landladies, because I live on out in the country, just got some hens and gone on holiday, and I'm having to look after these hens, and that is quite responsible.
The responsibility of having to look after your landlady's hens. Now, I wasn't expecting that response, I have to say.
It has its rewards. I get eggs.
You get eggs. Any more responsibility?
Well, John is saying responsibility adds richness.
Ooh, like a bit of that.
Actually,
And add a bit of thickness coming in there. Lovely. Anybody else? Anybody else want to chuck a bit of responsibility in? Come on, we know we want to. We know we want to.
All kids. And I always liked the footloose and fancy free life, and then I've got 4 kids. And the challenges have been fantastic, but I've had a great time. All these golden moments that I wouldn't have had without that responsibility, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
So the golden moments that are there within the responsibility. And so by the way, this is the first outing for my new friends here, by the way. I would love to say that I'm an amazing guy and I've turned this wood and I've painted them, but I haven't. I've paid a little craft person in Evesham has sorted all these out for me. So I haven't done it myself. But of course, the little girl demonstrates responsibility extremely well. She's going to at least throw a few starfish back in, even though there's thousands of them there. She is going to at least make a difference to one or two and get them back in the sea. And don't know how old this little girl is, but that's giving it a go, isn't it? It's taking some responsibility. So I then want to add in, accountability. Accountability. A person's ability or duty, look after the hens, no responsibility, or is it duty, to report on or to be held answerable for the results of the task or event. Not wishing to forestall any disaster, but what happens if one of the hens gets in?
Yeah, I've got some explaining to do.
Well, what can I say? So accountability is results focused and concerned with the consequences of someone's actions. So it's external driven. Someone else holds you accountable. So any thoughts around accountability?
I think ultimately you hold yourself accountable.
Thank you. So that's the idea that you hold yourself accountable. So you're responsible for their bits and pieces, blah, 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 blah. And certainly from a spiritual context, I'm with that. We sit there and set our aim to do something useful or whatever it may be. And yep, any more on accountability? Anything online?
Not so far, although I'm sure everybody is thinking.
You don't have to. There's no need to reply online, by the way. This wasn't having a go. I'm not having a go.
A necessary part of life.
A necessary part of life. So the kind of the responsibility kind of focuses on the task, whereas the accountability is kind of on the result. So, I am a really bad gardener. The result of that is I got in trouble with the garden once.
If it helps, John is contributing by nodding.
Yes. Yeah. So an accountability requires a kind of personal choice and action, whereas responsibility not necessarily so, because you can assume responsibility. You can assume responsibility maybe for an old listed building that you're struggling to look after. And then there's time makes a thing with it, of course. So accountability is when you finish the task, you're then accountable. But you can be responsible before the task, during the task, and after the task. So responsibility has got a weight of time around it, or a bigger weight of time around it to me than accountability. That makes sense. But I think this is where I kind of quite like the use of the butterfly. So when we get accountable, that's the bit I think where if somebody else is making you accountable, if you're anything like me, that I can get a bit aggravated about that. It's like, hang on a minute. But if that accountability has got a butterfly effect around it, then actually the results of your actions has got a much bigger, it's got a very different feel to it. You're not necessarily talking about an action at a specific point in time, but a trajectory, an attempt to get to a particular outcome that they may then hold you accountable for. Anything else sounding on responsibility and accountability?
There's a lack of it in today's society, in my opinion.
Both. Yeah.
Well, certainly accountability, it seems that some people suffer much harsher consequences for much smaller things, whereas others seem to skip away scot-free.
And so that sounds very much like to me that certain people, and they are, you know, our leaders or society organisers, seem to take the great responsibility for deciding what accountability means when not necessarily all in agreement with the way that accountability, I think that's what I heard you say, Louise. So it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge. So I'll leave you with those thoughts, and just going to tell this little story from, I think it's from Nigeria originally. And, you know, this is just a reminder of all our challenges, you know, what life's like. An old man who knows that his time is near decides to complete one last project to bless his relationship with his city-dwelling son. He proposes that they build a house together, a small mud hut with bare hands. I was just giggling at the idea of me and my son building a mud hut together. I don't think it would go remotely well. He proposes they build this house anyway. So the son agrees and he relocates to the village where his aged father receives him with great generosity. They begin in earnest, making out the plot, clearing the field, drying out the straw to help with thatching, and they're offering libations to bless their venture. And weeks go by and slowly it materializes on a piece of land the father inherited from his own ancestors. On the day the house is completed, the old man lies in his bed expecting the very next breath to be his last. The son completes the thatching, sweeps the new compound, and runs through to report the great news to his father, and the old man listens in silence as his son tells him the house is complete, that it's beautiful, and that he's so proud of being honoured by his father. And then, to the son's utmost surprise, the old man jumps out of bed with almost alien strength, pulls out a large hammer from under his bed, takes a look at his and says, "It's not complete, not yet." And he marches out to the new house, his son telling him with a confused look on his face. And when they arrive, the father inspects the property, moves closer to one of its delicately moulded walls, and then with one heaving blow, blasts a hole through it with his hammer. The son is speechless. When the dust settles, the father rests a trembling hand on his son's shoulders and gestures at the gaping hole. Now that hole is there. People wandering by will ask you if you need help. You must tell them yes. That is how community gets built. In the city, you are alone and whole. Here, you are wounded and gifted with the manifold. His final words will stay with him for years to come. Nothing is complete until it's wounded. Just checking them, just getting a hammer out just at this point, you know, just to make sure, because this is a really nice room. I didn't mean hammer a hole in this wall, just to clarify, I think in my lifetime, it's definitely true that it feels like people don't take responsibility in the same way as when I was younger. And And I really don't like the fact that I've even said that, because if I'd heard anybody my age say that when I was 20, I'd have growled a lot, you know. But the politics or the way our society expresses itself, especially through the social media, but it's not just the social media, we seem to not have this heaviness of debate anymore. And I think we're all on edge about that. I don't know whether you are, but I know I am. I know I am. And I have a son of 26 and a stepson of 31, you know, so obviously who I've known since I was 3. And so they have, you know, that's my experience of 2 young men growing up in this world. And when my son was kind of 15, 16, and I was watching all sorts of nonsense on YouTube and all these things at that time, which was all in the build up to the Brexit vote and all of that, I was watching this and it was like I wanted to take my head off sometimes. It was like, I don't want to listen to this. But I'm glad I did, because I was able to watch some of the things that were said and some of the personalities involved in it and how it's all shifted, you know, in a very short time. A very, very short time indeed. And so I think it really is important that responsibility is taken by individuals, that is taken by small groups. And it's why I'm passionate about the Unitarian movement. Is, you know, we are little, we are gathered bands that are like yourself, who are, you know, opening their hearts, unclear about what the future holds. But, you know, what does this world need? Well, it does need people who are willing to pick up a starfish and throw it back in the ocean, and hope that that does some good. And we do need to make an assessment of what feels right and good and try and have as big a effect with that as possible. We, without question, need all of that. But that doesn't mean that mysteriously this room becomes an incredible hive of the most unbelievable activity that Newcastle has ever seen, although of course that would be lovely. What it does mean is it can become a home of sustenance for people who maybe do throw the odd starfish back there. Not necessarily on a Sunday, but by the fact that they're connected to the Unitarian movement. And it's something I believe that all our congregations can acknowledge, that actually it's really important that a faith that does not instruct you what to believe, with a strong history of trying to make the world a better place, can have far greater effect than the size of the movement. We've already done it. We've been doing it for hundreds of years, and therefore we can do it again. And that doesn't mean that any of that's easy, because it sure as heck isn't. But it does mean we should try. It does mean we should try. And I know that from the little I've learned from a couple of you, you know, it's been a journey moving out of your lovely old building to end up here. And I'm sure that's brought a lot of tears and heartache and throwing the toys out of the pram, if you can still use that phrase. I'm sure there's reasons why I can't say that, but anyway, I've said it now. But that fact that you've had enough, yeah, can't do anymore. And that's why it is important to breathe in and get our sustenance as individuals. And it's absolutely okay if it takes you a year or two of just keeping your own sustenance here, you know, and to remain willing and open, because we know the world needs more good people. It needs much more tolerance. It needs much more openness. And that's what we as Unitarians are. And so I hope that, you know, it's quite a long way to the sea from here, isn't it?
It's about 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. So it would be a struggle to pick up a starfish from here and throw it into the sea. But the principle and the trajectory sit, doesn't it? I'd like to do a final reading from Alfred Lamott. It's I love this reading, and then we'll sing together to conclude. My ancestry DNA results came in. Just as I suspected, my great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There is dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of the meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in golden dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, let's say about 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge, joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and the moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. I am made of your grandmother's tears. You conquered rival tribesmen of your own colour, chained them together, marched them naked to the coast and sold them to the colonials from the savannah. Do ripen each other's breath. Just going to finish. No, technically we're supposed to have things like closing words and benedictions. And this technically is, but I absolutely love this phrase. This is from a book, Re-Enchanting the Activist, Spirituality and Social Change by Keith Hebden, who is one of the leaders of Citizens UK. So I'm just going to read this sentence a couple of times and we'll have some silence and then I'll extinguish the chalice. We must act to be enchanted. We must be enchanted to keep on dancing. We must act to be enchanted. And we must be enchanted to keep on dancing. Till you gather again, please remain open to the beloved of your hearts. Amen and blessed be.